Have you ever woken up one day and realized your whole life had been spent cleaning up other people's messes? I have. My name is Megan, and at 32, I wasn't traveling the world, chasing dreams, or even figuring out who I wanted to be. I was too busy holding my family together, paying the bills they couldn't, fixing problems they created, and sacrificing every ounce of peace I had to keep them comfortable. But nothing prepared me for the day I woke up in a hospital bed after a car accident, broken and bruised, only to find out my parents and my brother had left for a luxury trip to Italy, using the very tickets I had paid for. No call, no bedside visits, just a quick decision to leave me behind because, as my mom put it, the trip was already booked. That was the moment everything cracked wide open. For the first time, I saw my life for what it really was. A never-ending cycle of giving, sacrificing, and being taken for granted. I thought the crash was rock bottom, but in truth, it was my wake-up call, a brutal, necessary breaking point that forced me to ask, what happens when the fixer stops fixing? This is my story, and trust me, it's not the one I ever expected to tell. I wasn't born the responsible one. I became her, gradually, reluctantly, and then all at once. While my friends in their early 30s were posting vacation selfies and celebrating career milestones, I was juggling my full-time job in digital branding with overdue utility bills that weren't even mine. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Denver, but my paycheck had to stretch far enough to cover my parents' mortgage shortfalls and my brother Ethan's therapy sessions. It wasn't always this way. There was a time back in college when I thought life would be different. I had dreams of starting my own agency, maybe even moving to New York, but reality came knocking when Ethan lost his job nearly a year ago and spiraled into what my parents lovingly called a rough patch. They never used words like irresponsible or entitled. They called it temporary. I called it exhausting. Every week followed the same script. My mom would call with a sweet, hesitant tone. "Honey, Ethan's therapist invoice just came in." I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. And I would sigh, open my banking app, and send another payment. Nobody ever asked how I was doing. Nobody wondered if I could afford it. I was the problem solver, the dependable one, the background character holding the whole production together. Ethan, 5 years older, had quit his job in a blaze of anger after being passed over for a promotion. "They gave it to Bryce." "Bryce!" he shouted, tossing his phone onto my kitchen table. "After everything I've done!" Then, like it was the most rational move in the world, he walked out with no backup plan. Weeks passed, then months, and suddenly a year had gone by with Ethan scrolling job listings and rejecting interviews because the roles didn't offer remote flexibility or Friday wellness hours. According to him, he was being selective. According to me, and my dwindling savings, he was being a parasite. Still, I kept holding things together. I picked up freelance contracts. I skipped dinners out. I ignored the tension in my chest every time I opened my bank account. Responsibility doesn't make you feel strong when it's forced on you. It makes you feel invisible, like you're slowly drowning and no one notices you waving for help. Then came the idea of Rome. It had always been a fantasy, something I scribbled on a list during my sophomore year. Make pasta in Italy, drink red wine in a vineyard, watch the sunset from a balcony in Trastevere. Over the years, that list got buried beneath grocery receipts and rent reminders. But one night, after another round of bills and yet another guilt-laced phone call from Mom, I opened my laptop and typed Rome into the search bar. Just to feel something. The idea grew fast. I imagined my parents smiling over a plate of fresh pasta, my dad swirling a glass of wine, Ethan finally laughing like he used to. I poured my heart into planning the trip, not just as a vacation, but as a chance to reconnect. I booked a boutique hotel in a quiet Roman neighborhood, arranged cheese tastings for Mom, a private vineyard tour for Dad, and even picked a walking route Ethan might enjoy. It was my way of saying, let's start over, let's just be happy for once. I printed the itinerary, highlighted every detail, and packed our bags myself. I told myself if I could just give them this, one perfect memory, maybe I wouldn't feel so alone anymore. The morning of our flight to Rome, I woke up buzzing with anticipation. My suitcase was zipped and ready by the door. I'd even ironed my outfit the night before, a casual but chic airport look that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. The itinerary was folded neatly in my purse, color-coded and full of hope. All I had to do was wrap up one last client presentation downtown, then head straight to the airport. I remember humming along to an old jazz playlist, driving through the early spring streets of Denver. I was picturing Mom in a sun hat, Dad swirling a bold red in a vineyard, Ethan snapping selfies with Roman statues. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. That's the last clear memory I have. A green light, a flash of silver, the sickening crunch of metal. And then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, everything was blurred and heavy. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. A stranger's hand gripped my wrist, checking for a pulse. I wanted to speak, to ask what had happened, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. The next thing I remember is the hospital ceiling, a harsh white glow, and the beep of machines. My ribs burned with every shallow breath. "You're lucky," a nurse said softly, adjusting my IV. "It was a bad one, but you're going to heal." I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow. What broke me wasn't the pain or the bruises or the fact that I couldn't move without wincing. It was the quiet absence of the thing I had been holding on to. That trip. The escape. The one bright spot I had carved out of a brutal year, gone in a blink. I was still foggy from the pain meds when the door opened and my parents walked in. Mom was clutching the beige crossbody bag I'd bought her specifically for the Rome trip. The sight of it made my stomach twist. Dad followed behind her, quiet as usual, and Ethan trailed after, sipping a cup of hospital coffee like he had all the time in the world. "I'm so sorry," I rasped, my voice hoarse and dry. "We'll have to cancel everything. I'll call the hotel as soon as I'm able." I expected concern, maybe even disappointment. But what I got was something else entirely. Mom smiled, a tight, polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, don't worry about any of that," she said, adjusting her purse strap like we were talking about brunch plans. "Your father and I talked it over. We've decided to go ahead with the trip." My breath hitched. "Wait, what?" "You need to stay here and heal," she continued smoothly. "Since you can't come, we thought it would be a shame to let everything go to waste." "So, we're taking Ethan." Ethan nodded, like it was the most logical thing in the world. "You were supposed to watch the house while we were gone," he said matter-of-factly. "You'll have to hire someone now. Just make sure they're reliable." I stared at them, my mouth open, but no words came out. They stood there chatting about passport holders and neck pillows, as if I weren't lying in a hospital bed, with stitches and bruises and a broken heart. I searched their faces for something. Compassion, guilt, recognition. But there was nothing. Just convenience. Then they turned to leave. "We'll send photos," Mom chirped, waving her perfectly manicured hand like she was signing off a postcard. And then they were gone. The room felt impossibly quiet after the door clicked shut. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the betrayal sinking in deeper than any injury. I hadn't just been left behind. I had been replaced, cut out of my own dream like I was nothing more than a travel agent. I don't know how long I stared at that door before I finally reached for the nurse call button. When she came in, I whispered, "Could you please get my phone?" A few minutes later, she handed me a clear hospital bag. My hands shook as I dug through it, finally finding my phone at the bottom. I turned it on. The lock screen was a picture of the three of us at Thanksgiving. I didn't even hesitate. I deleted it. Then I opened my email. Every reservation, every tour, every carefully planned detail, still sitting there, mocking me. My thumb hovered over the first one. The hotel. A few clicks, and on. Cancelled. Cheese tour for Mom? Gone. Vineyard day for Dad? Deleted. Dinner reservations I had spent hours planning? Erased. One by one, it all unraveled. And with each cancellation, the ache in my chest lightened just a little. The last thing was the return flights. I hesitated, my thumb trembling. I imagined them landing in Rome, tired and eager, only to find out they had nowhere to sleep. I pressed cancel. Done. I put the phone face down on the tray beside my bed and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding everything together. I let it fall apart, and I felt calm. The days that followed felt like a strange kind of freedom. My phone vibrated almost constantly. Calls, texts, voicemails. At first, I was tempted to answer, out of habit more than anything else. But then I remembered the look on their faces when they left. How easily they had walked away, bags in hand, chatting about flight times and souvenirs. So I didn't answer, not once. By breakfast on the second day, I had 27 missed calls and 14 texts. By mid-morning, it was 42 and counting. I grabbed a pen from the nurse's station and started keeping tally on the back of my lunch menu. Calls, texts, voicemails. It started as a joke, but soon it felt like something else. Proof. Proof that they only chased me when they needed something. The messages shifted in tone as the hours passed. Ethan was the first to lash out. "This is petty, Megan. We're stranded because of you. Seriously messed up." Then came Mom. "Megan, we are heartbroken. After everything we've done for you." Dads were fewer but louder. "Fix this. Your mother is crying." But none of it touched me the way it used to. For once, their guilt trips slid right off me like water off glass. Instead, something unexpected happened. My coworkers started showing up. First, it was Claire from accounting, sneaking in with a real cup of coffee and a smile. "You didn't think we'd let you survive on hospital coffee forever, did you?" she teased. Then came James and Priya from the creative team, armed with magazines and a box of donuts. Little by little, my hospital room transformed from a cold, sterile box into a place of warmth and quiet support. These weren't grand gestures. They were simple acts of care, and for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Julia, my manager, arrived a few days later with sunflowers and a firm hug. "You're not falling behind," she promised. "We've got you covered." And I believed her. For once, no one was asking me for anything. They weren't keeping score. They just wanted me to know I mattered, even when I had nothing left to give. And that, more than anything, started to heal me. But of course, my family couldn't stay away forever. It happened on a Friday morning, just after my physical therapist left. I had taken 6 shaky steps from the bed to the window, proud and exhausted, when I heard it. The sharp scrape of luggage wheels barreling down the hallway. No knock, no pause, just the door flying open. Mom stormed in first, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, still wearing the linen pants I had packed for her Rome trip. "How dare you!" she snapped, her voice trembling, not with sadness, but with pure rage. Ethan came in next, dragging his suitcase like a prop, and Dad followed, arms crossed, eyes cold. I didn't move. I just stood there gripping the window railing, steadying myself. "You abandoned us!" Mom spat, stepping closer to the bed. "We were stranded, humiliated after everything we've done for you." Ethan threw up his arms. "Look at her! Private room, 3 meals a day, nurses on standby, and we're out there sleeping in a dump that smells like mildew." I blinked, stunned. Not by their anger, but by their absolute audacity. Before I could speak, Nurse Amber slipped in, placing herself between us. "I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voices," she said calmly. "This is a recovery ward." They ignored her, of course. "You're not the victim here, Megan," Ethan barked. "You ruined a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Just to make a point." Something inside me snapped. I let go of the railing and turned to face them, my legs shaky but holding firm. "No," I said, voice low but steady. "Let's talk about ruining things." The room fell silent. For the past year, I've paid your bills. I've covered the rent. I've paid for Ethan's therapy. I've worked overtime so you could keep the lights on. And when I planned a trip to bring us together, something beautiful, you walked out on me the second I couldn't carry you anymore. Mom opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "I was hit by a car. I needed surgery. I almost died. And what did you do? You left me. You packed your bags and left for Rome like I was nothing more than your travel agent." Ethan's face burned red. Dad looked away. And then Mom said the quiet part out loud. "We didn't know if you'd still be able to travel," she snapped. "We thought it was better to go while everything was still usable." Usable. That word hit harder than the crash ever did. Without breaking eye contact, I reached for the nurse call button and pressed it. "Yes, Megan?" Amber's voice crackled through the speaker. "Can you please send security?" I said calmly. "I'd like these people escorted out and added to my restricted visitors list." Mom gasped. "You can't be serious!" But I was. Security arrived within minutes, 2 officers stepping between us. "This patient is recovering from major trauma," one of them said firmly. "We're going to have to ask you to leave." They sputtered protests, but it didn't matter. Their voices faded as they were led down the hall, and with every step they took away from me, I felt lighter. Not broken, not bitter, just done. The silence after they left was strange, but peaceful. For years, I had braced myself for the next guilt trip, the next emotional grenade. But now, nothing. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I started to heal. Not just my ribs, but my heart. The doctors noticed. "You're recovering faster than expected," one of them said. I just smiled. For the first time, I wasn't carrying everyone else's weight. I was just me. Every day I pushed a little farther, from my bed to the window, down the hall, into the garden, where I sat under the spring sun and let myself breathe, deeply, fully. The pain was still there, but every step felt like reclaiming a piece of me. 2 weeks later, they discharged me. No family, no ride home, but as I stepped into the crisp Colorado air, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. When I unlocked my apartment, my breath caught. No mess, no chaos. Fresh tulips sat on the table, and a sticky note on the fridge read, "Welcome home, Megan. We've got your back." Signed by Julia and my team. That simple act undid me. Quiet, steady care. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Then came the text from my cousin Lisa. "Have you seen your mom's Facebook post?" I hadn't, but I looked. The usual drama. "We've done everything for our daughter, and she betrayed us in our time of need." What she didn't expect were the comments. "Lisa, you left Megan in a hospital bed to sip wine in Rome. Don't twist it." Others chimed in too. The truth spread fast. The post vanished within hours. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I focused on getting stronger. I worked part-time, then eased back into the office. The day I walked through those doors without a cane, my team erupted into applause. A banner hung over my desk. "Welcome back, boss lady." That night, I sat on my couch with a slice of cake and opened my laptop. I typed Rome into the search bar. Same hotel, same tours. But this time, I booked for one. Just me. The confirmation email dinged, and I smiled. Finally, something that was mine. And mine alone. 4 months later, I stepped off the plane at Leonardo da Vinci Airport with nothing but a small carry-on and a heart that felt lighter than it had in years. Rome greeted me with the smell of espresso and sun-warmed stone, the sky a perfect cloudless blue. I paused outside the terminal, taking it all in, not as part of a family group, not as anyone's fixer, but just as me. A driver stood holding a sign, "Miss Megan Carter." I smiled as I walked up. No one had ever called me Miss, unless they were mailing a bill, but here it felt right, like I was stepping into a new chapter that belonged to me alone. The hotel was exactly as I had dreamed, a tiny boutique spot in Trastevere, ivy climbing up its walls, a terrace overlooking narrow cobblestone streets. My room was bright, the linens crisp, and the breakfast tray already waiting on the balcony. For once, it wasn't about impressing anyone or making everything perfect. It was about showing up for myself, and that's exactly what I did. I wandered through alleyways, got lost on purpose, sipped wine slowly, and watched the world unfold around me. I took the cheese tour my mom had begged for, savoring every bite, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I stood in a vineyard under the Italian sun, breathing in the quiet. I laughed, alone and unbothered, realizing I wasn't lonely. I was free. On my last night, I sat at a tiny outdoor cafe, a bowl of carbonara in front of me, a glass of deep red in hand, I snapped a single photo, not to post, not to prove anything, but just to remember how it felt. Calm, steady, mine. That's when it hit me. All those years I thought love meant sacrificing until there was nothing left of me. But real love, the kind that heals, isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding your worth and refusing to settle for less. I didn't need to escape my life. I just needed to rebuild it on my own terms. And sitting there in the golden glow of Rome, for the first time in forever, I knew I was finally home.